62 million Germans will be casting their ballots on the 26th of September. The outcome is expected to be some form of coalition, but with several combinations possible, which parties will take the lead? Germany's heading towards an uncertain future as Angela Merkel's 16-year legacy comes to an end. Who will succeed her? And could this be a turning point for Germany's domestic politics? Hello there, welcome to Roundtable. With German election results around the corner, who will lead the country? We'll be speaking to a CDU MEP and a member of the Social Democrat Party to find out more. Germans will go to the polls in a few days to elect a new parliament and decide on a successor to Angela Merkel, who's dominated the political scene in the country since 2005.
I can't remember there being anyone else as Chancellor. So for me, it's just always been Angie. So it will be weird to have to choose someone else.
Three parties have been dominating the polls this month. The Social Democratic Party of Germany, the SPD, is leading with 25% of the votes. The Christian Democratic Union, with its sister party, the Christian Social Union, is following with 21%. And lastly, the Green Party, with 17%. One possible coalition is the so-called Jamaica Alliance of the centre-right, Liberals and Greens. Another is the Traffic Light Alliance of centre-left, Liberals and Greens. But the number of undecided voters hit a record high, according to research by the Allensbach Research Institute. They found that 40% of voters who are determined to participate in the election have yet to decide which party they will support. With the political landscape looking fragmented, could Germany end up with a three-way coalition? And will this be a turning point for the country? Joining us on Roundtable today from Frankfurt, Michael Gahler, a Christian Democratic Union and European Parliament member. In Munich, Ursula Munch, she's the director of the Academy for Political Education in Tutzing. And from Frankfurt, Arne Lietz, a Social Democrat member and director at the Brunswick Group. Good to have all of you with us. Arne, let me start with you. Olaf Scholz of the SPD, he's really leapt ahead in the polls. Why is he doing so well? What do voters like about him?
Well, I think this has different reasons. First of all, the Social Democrats always came late on announcing their candidate. And here, the party leadership and Olaf Scholz agreed on that he will be running for chancellery, and he did that a year ago. So he had good time to work inside the party, but also in public on his agenda, what he's running for. So he's combining the climate issue, the working questions, but also the business transformation into a climate business transformation. And also he came up on issues like social welfare questions, but also minimum wages issues, as they are highly discussed in Germany. And I think all of that together made it easy in comparison to the other candidates, which came in very late into the debate and being candidates.
In contrast, Michael, Armin Laschet of the CDU, who was supposed to be Angela Merkel's successor, has fallen so low in the polls that many are questioning whether he's dragging the rest of the party down with him. Do you think the CDU backed the wrong candidate?
I don't think we backed the wrong candidate. We had an unusual situation. We normally had a situation where a sitting chancellor was standing and getting elected or not elected. So it was a new situation for us for the first time to have a situation to have to nominate someone. And then we had inside the CDU several candidates for party chair, and then between CDU and CSU to sort out who should be the chancellor's candidate. And that went as it did, and it was not very much appreciated, I think. But on the other hand, we see that there is amongst the voters, there is a longing for a continuity. And that might be currently the idea of the Social Democrats to depict Mr. Scholz as the continuity of Mrs. Merkel, imitating her even in her way to move the hand and saying I'm the one, don't worry, I'm Merkel 2.0. I think the people will not buy it, especially as we are now more focusing on content.
The people seem to be buying it, if the polls are to be believed, because Arne Lietz is not doing well in the polls right now.
This is the polls, and I'm confident for election day, because, as I said, overall, I would say that the crisis that we are in now, the corona crisis, has been dealt with relatively well. People are looking forward to getting the economy going again. And in this regard, I'm convinced that it is with us who are able to combine both climate issues, but also the recovery of the economy, and clearly saying we do not want to combine that with tax increases. We have seen before the crisis that we had a budget surplus without raising taxes and rising economy, and I think that should be the way forward, and that is the message that we are trying to get over.
Ursula, what are your thoughts? Because Arne Lietz was thought to be a shoo-in. Suddenly he's being criticised as being boring, lacklustre. He was seen laughing on a visit to a flooded town in July. It seems to have gone quite wrong for him at this point.
Yes, it's really several things went wrong for him. His first problem was that he already had a problem in this competition with the other candidate for the chancellorship in the Conservative Party. So we have two Conservative parties, so-called sister party. The one of them, the CSU, is only to be voted for in Bavaria, in southern Germany, and the CDU is we can vote for in the other land of the German Republic. And we already had this competition between CSU and CDU, and although Laschet was successful in this competition, nevertheless, the public got the idea that there might be a better candidate, the candidate from the CSU, and all the bad things and negative things who were mentioned during this competition inside the conservative parties, all of us, the public, we remembered these negative pictures of Armin Laschet when we saw, for example, his faults he made during this flood in Western Germany. So I think for him it was a disadvantage to have this competition, the inner party, inside the Conservatives, and that was one of his problems. Another problem for the Conservative was that in the first and at the beginning of the campaign, they had another political enemy. At the beginning, everybody thought in Germany that the political enemy would be the Greens, Annalena Baerbock, a young female candidate, not experienced in the executive, not having any experience in governing in a federal government or a land government, and because she made also a lot of mistakes, the Greens went down in the polls, and the Social Democrats became more attractive for the public, and the CDU-CSU has got another political enemy, the Social Democrats, and I think they lost the mobilization factor, because it would have mobilized a lot of conservative voters in favor of the CDU and the CSU to vote against this unexperienced Green candidate. But now we have another enemy for the political enemy for the Conservatives, another competitor. It's an experienced, in the federal government, experienced Olaf Scholz, and that changed a lot also for the Conservatives, not only for the Greens.
Let's hear what the...
now you've just...
Go on, Michael.
You've just called us 10 times Conservatives. We are Christian Democrats, and I think... But
I'm not sure whether all of the international public always knows what is meant, and I think conservative is something which is in international context easy to understand.
In the European Parliament is the same. But my point is to make is that, of course, the SPD tries to depict this Olaf Scholz as if he was the mainstream and the wanted candidate.
Well, let's ask Arne about that, because Arne is a member of the SPD. And what do you say to accusations that Olaf Scholz is positioning himself as Angela Merkel Mark II, that he's copying her mannerisms, that he's trying to present this front of being the natural continuity?
I really think, like what Mrs. Munch just said, that it has continuity because he has been in office on many situations. He has been a minister on previous governments. He has been heading the state of Hamburg, and now he's the vice chancellor with the German presidency of the EU and other issues, international tax questions, international negotiations. So he's very well experienced. And so, but to be frank, he didn't win the votes inside the party to lead the party when he was running for it. Nevertheless, it is interesting that the party leadership agreed with him that he would be the running candidate because he has been perceived as having the most chances, and that this went to the case without any big trouble inside the party was, from my party background experiences, really not seen before. And I think that was a very good move. And so he has been also the lead of this campaign, and the campaign is totally positioned towards him and his political strengths. And we will see on coalition situations how the debate is going to run also across the party. Nevertheless, I really foresee him also, as the Germans want to have continuity, but also this kind of calmness on critical issues he's really standing for.
Well, let's talk about possible coalitions, because one of the things that the CDU has been saying is that a danger of Olaf Scholz making deals with the left. Jens Spahn, the German health minister, says Scholz is a moderate in appearance only and is in fact a Trojan horse for the far left. He says Olaf Scholz is a fig leaf for a left-wing SPD. Behind him are hiding all that crowd with the old ideas, higher taxes, more taxes, extra constraints on freedom. That's all pretty 1970s stuff. Michael, is the CDU just scaremongering to try and shore up their own campaign?
Well, Arne was right in saying the party didn't want him because he was not left enough. And that is why he was not elected party chair. And those in the party, the two co-chairs and the vice chair, Mr. Kühnert, to name but a few, they are really shutting up, and they will come out on the 26th at 1800. And I'm pretty sure that if there is a numerical majority for a red-green government, Mr. Scholz doesn't want it. I'm also sure. But I'm pretty sure that the leftists in the SPD and in the Greens and the Left Party, they will then simply at some point push him aside if he refuses to have make use of a numerical majority to make it a political majority in the Bundestag.
Ursula, what do you see in terms of coalitions? Do you think that there's Germany could end up with a red coalition?
It could end, yes, of course, that is possible, but I don't think that really Olaf Scholz doesn't want it. We already heard that. They are, in the moment they are trying, of course, the Social Democrats are trying to tell the public that it might be a certain chance to form a coalition only with the Greens together. There's only a very small possibility that this might happen, but they tell this, of course, the public. I don't see that there's really the chance for a red-green-red government. I think they will try to get the Free Democrats, the Liberals, into a so-called, we call it in German, a Ampelkoalition, a traffic light coalition out of red, green and yellow for the Liberals, and probably that would be the thing Olaf Scholz would probably prefer. But this, of course, that depends on the behavior of the strategic of the Liberals, who are not too fond of this form of way of coalition. But the Liberals, they want to become part of a federal government, so this might be a chance to prevent a left left government, left coalition, and that might be an argument for the Liberals to go in this so-called Ampelkoalition, traffic light coalition, in order to prevent a left-wing coalition on federal level.
I love talks of Jamaica coalition, also... traffic light coalition. What are your thoughts, Arne? What kind of deals might Scholz make?
Well, for me, it is quite obvious that, and Scholz made clear on that issue, that, as you said yourself, this is stuff from the 70s, and this is kind of painting a red wall on the streets. So Scholz made clear that he sticks to NATO and he sticks to international politics. He sticks to the European Union. And so the NATO issue is the core issue where not only the SPD, the Social Democrats, but also the Greens made quite clear that they are not ready on a coalition of this basis. And so therefore, I also foresee, like Mrs. Munch said, that there is no real chance, and here I disagree with Michael on that situation, that there's no real chance for a left and social democratic and green
just
coalition.
To explain for our viewers, that the left Die Linke party want to replace NATO with a security alliance more aligned with Russia, and that is a red line for the SDP,
for
is
sure.
it?
But that is also a red line for the Green Party, and Annalena Baerbock made quite clear, and the whole party leadership is very clear on that. So as Mrs. Munch said, the Liberals are the most likely partner, but also, for me, foreseeable is that the Liberals said there's no tax raising. And we really have to be careful also on the tax balance inside Germany, that the poor become poorer and the rich become richer, to be very frank and easy on that explanation. And if the Liberals are not kind of crossing that line as what they promised in their campaign, that there might be even a grand coalition coming up again. Would be interested what Mrs. Munch and Michael Gahler maybe say about that.
Interesting to hear. That's quite unusual that a social democrat is talking once again about a grand coalition, a so-called grand coalition on the federal level, because most social democrats don't want to have this once again. I think most of the public would really think that this might be the best idea. But on the other hand, of course, we have a big problems with regard to climate politics, and the last grand coalition didn't do such a good job on this issue.
I mean, depending on what kind of coalition is formed.
Come into that.
Anna thinks, of course, under Social Democrat leadership.
All right, okay, guys, let's do one at a time. Michael, what's your comment?
Just Arne was, of course, referring to that under the condition that, of course, the Social Democrats would be in the lead, because I don't think they would accept a black-red coalition under our leadership again. And if they are
who would the CDU look to, though? Because the CDU tried to make a deal with the Freedom, the Liberals and the Greens 4 years ago, right? But that didn't work.
Exactly, because the Liberals were kind of cheating in the political sphere, kind of announcing a lot and then kind of falling back. And this was on to Lindner. So as he had done this before, I'm not sure where the Liberals really stand and if he's ready to also cross some red lines he draw himself in his campaign, like not raising any taxes or having a new tax balance, put it that way. And therefore, that would be, as Mrs. Munch said, the last thing a Social Democrat would like, because our political party system was actually based on a balanced situation on the big parties, like the Christian Democrats Union and also the Social Democrats with smaller coalitions. And so the Grand Coalition didn't really play out well for the German politics. And therefore, the Grand Coalition is the last thing which could be done, but I think more likely than a left Social Democratic and Green coalition, as we talked before.
The problem with this grand coalition under the leadership of the Social Democrats, perhaps the CDU would do it, but the Bavarian part of the Conservatives, the Christian Social Union, CSU, under the leadership of Markus Söder, he already announced that he wouldn't become part of it, of this grand coalition as a junior partner.
What do you say to that, Michael?
No, I also don't see us as a junior partner with the Social Democrats. I would not speculate about that we would by any means do that. I mean, then we should either opt for Jamaica, if that is numerically possible, because then we would have two parties, for instance, on the tax issue who are like-minded, and with many other issues, I think we could find a solution with the Greens, because major issues like nuclear energy, that is off the agenda. And also the Greens are, for instance, more critical against Russia than the Social Democrats. So I would, in such a constellation, see, for instance, more common ground, for instance, in positioning towards Russia, or also on defense issues even.
So, Michael, do you think there is a chance that domestic policies in Germany could change after the election?
Well, if there is a new constellation, of course, if it were Jamaica, that would change to that extent that we can remove certain issues that have been contested before. I think on the climate issue, on the agenda 2030 or Fit for 55, this huge challenge to lower the CO2 ratings.
Ursula, I saw you give a little nod there. What do you think could be possibly different for Germans after the elections?
Yes, that's the big question. So normally we can say that we have not such big changes in German politics, because normally we have always coalition governments, and the normal thing is that at least one of the coalition partners was already part of the government of the former government. So therefore the big reforms, we never had these really big changes besides the year 1998 when we had a social democratic and green government after a liberal conservative government. So that was a big change, but normal times we have at least a little continuity, and we will have, of course, this continuity after the next, when we form the next government, we will have a certain kind of continuity with regard to the federal government, because one of the partners of the current government will be part of the next government too.
Right.
That's the one argument, that we won't have such big changes, and the other argument that we won't have so big changes is our federal system. So we have a federal system, we have a second chamber in Germany, we have this Bundesrat who takes part in all legislative decisions and who has a veto power in 40 to 50% of the federal laws. And in this Bundesrat, we have 13 different Länder coalitions, and in 11 of these 16 Länder governments in Germany, the Greens are already part of the government. So my point is, there will be a change, of course, but the change will not be so big that anybody has to have fear that there will be such a radical reform in Germany. Germans don't do radical reforms.
And what are your thoughts, Arne? Do you agree with that?
Well, in general, yes, but I think there will be slightly new components. If you look at the social welfare system and the minimum wage question, in comparison to other European countries, Germany is not on the highest part in comparison to other countries, so there is still some space to the top. Besides that, I also think that under a chancellorship of Mr. Scholz, if he wins, the European Union reforms will be put forward. This is what the Germans want as well, and in particular, as Michael said, that we have upcoming reforms. The Green Deal and the Sustainable Development Goals are key components of the Scholz agenda, and therefore also on the party agenda, actually, the Sustainable Development Goals are put forward in the party program for this campaign. And so these are issues, as Mrs. Munch said, Germany would continuously working on to deliver. And I foresee, therefore, also that the Greens, if they come into the coalition, will actually push on these issues. And that will be a big swing positively towards our European walk on the moon, as we have to really fulfill the climate transformation and the business transformation like questions on ESG or questions on hydrogen and renewable energy, and we have to move much quicker and to reach this.
So I totally agree, and I didn't want to say that we don't need changes in reforms, but all governments have to make these changes because the last government weren't so progressive with regard to climate policy. So it doesn't depend which color the next government will have. The whole public hopes that we will have enough changes with regard, for example, to European policy and with regard to climate change.
Let me just put a quick question to Michael, because Angela Merkel recently made a personal plea to voters to back her party. She said that the best way for our country is a CDU-CSU-led federal government. Do you think that Angela Merkel should have done more to champion Arne Lietz in the run-up to this election? Has the CDU been too complacent?
I think she has made some very clear statements, and if she was championing too much, then the other side would say, oh, look, it's not the real candidate who is trying to win the votes, but it's her, they need her.
Well, at this moment, it's a numbers game, so we wait to see what is the outcome of the election. But for the moment, thank you very much indeed to all my guests, Michael Gahler, Ursula Munch and Arne Lietz. Thank you. And you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Search for Roundtable TRT World. For now, from me and all the team here, bye-bye. Thanks for watching.